Good morning, guys. We are going to be working on our big project for the week. You've been doing several sketchbook assignments. This week you worked on patterns and shapes and color, and this is going to tie the shapes and the colors together. You could definitely throw a little bit of pattern in here if you wanted to, but that's not what I'm expecting. We're going to play with color mixing, particularly with this project. You need a piece of paper. The thicker the better. If you don't have a thick piece of paper, that's okay. You can just use two. You definitely need either a black crayon or a Sharpie to do the drawing part. We're not going to sketch it out with pencil first. We're just going to go straight to one or the other. The reason why is because I don't want you to stress too much about making perfect lines. As you can see, I have 4 little clear glass vases in front of me, so right up here. We're going to use those kind of as our inspiration, and we're going to be drawing a shelf with colored glass vases. Again, these are just inspiration, these vases here, so you don't have to make your vases look like that. I just wanted you to kind of get an idea of what I'm using and where I'm getting my shapes from. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and use the black crayon just because I know the black crayon's not going to bleed through my paper. The Sharpie is going to bleed a little bit, and we're going to be actually using markers and water and a paintbrush when we start mixing our colors. So I know for sure my black crayon is not going to do any bleeding. The Sharpie with this paper bleeds a little bit when I draw on it, so it'll probably bleed a little bit when water's added to it, which is why I'm going with the crayon. So I'm going to just draw right down here, straight line. This is a horizontal straight line because it's going from side to side across my paper. And I'm doing 2 of them that are parallel to create the look of a shelf. And then I'm going to just draw a series of shapes for my vases. So I'll use that one as an example. It's a rectangle on the bottom. And then it kind of comes up, closes off. Obviously, this is a little bit smaller spout than that, but that's okay. It's kind of like a little bud vase. We'll go with this one next to it. This is a little bit more of a oval, rounded, or a heart shape actually. That could be a little bit of a heart. All right. And I'll make that little picture too with the handle. Now, if you are more comfortable starting at the top and drawing down to the bottom of your paper, by all means do that. You don't have to start in the same direction that I start in just because I started in that direction, guys. Now, as you can see, there's somebody outside of interest. George is going to get them. This doesn't look exactly like that, and that's okay. The expectation is to just have fun with this. Now, one thing I do want to do here, none of my vases are touching. So I do actually want to go in and draw a vase here and a vase here. So it kind of looks like one is in front of the other, kind of like that. Because that way we can see, if we look, we can see this vase through this one because they are made from glass. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just draw something simple. It looks almost like a cup. Nothing too ridiculously crazy. All right, so I'm going to draw one more here, and I'm going to draw one that kind of looks a little bit like that. And just so you guys know, this is actually my first time drawing these shapes for this project. I didn't practice it first. This is it. You're getting it in true first time ever form here. That's an interesting little shape, isn't it? All right, so because I have my two taller pieces over here on this side of the paper is a little bit heavy, which means that when I come up here to draw some of my vases, I want to balance it out a little bit. So I'm probably going to draw a little bit of a taller one over here. And I have a really fun vase in my window that looks like a fish that I might try to copy just for fun. It's not clear glass, but we're gonna pretend like, for the sake of this project, it is clear glass. And I'm gonna draw it right about here. It's called a gurgle pot, just in case you were wondering. And you put water in it, and when you pour it, it makes a fun little gurgling noise. So that's fun, and it's different, so we're gonna go with it. And we'll go ahead and give the lovely little fish its eye, so that it doesn't look too strange. There, that's my gurgle pot. So now it's a little bit more balanced. Again, I'm going to actually draw a few more glass pieces. I'm gonna echo this shape again because I really like that shape. When I'm playing around with pottery, I tend to make this shape a lot. All right, and we'll go with that one again, just because that's a fairly easy one to do as well. All right, so I have about equal amounts of space here and here. That looks fairly well balanced. I kind of want to do one more thing over here just to even it out a little bit. I might do this shape one more time, except I'm going to do it slightly differently. And it's going off the page a little bit, and that's fine. If you draw really close to the edge and it goes off the page some, that's fine. Because of that, I'm going to actually come down here and I'm going to draw another shape down here that goes off the page a little bit. I'll make this one. I'll repeat that shape. I'll just make it a little bit taller. So I wanted to make that look round. The way I did it is by putting in an oval here. Same with this one here, which you can do. If you just draw the line straight across, it's gonna make it look very flat, and that is also fine. That's not a big deal. I'm gonna do one more. Do a little mason jar here. I use mason jars a lot when I paint to hold my waters in, which mason jars are really just glass jars. A lot of times they look like jelly jars, or are used for jelly or jams or vegetables. All right, so there we go. That's a small one. All right, so everything here is drawn the way I want it to be drawn. Everything is balanced out pretty well. So I don't need my pencil anymore, or my crayon anymore. Now we need markers. For this part, you do not, if you have Sharpies, guys, you do not want to use the Sharpies for this. We want regular old markers, like Crayola markers, because they are going to bleed when we wet them with water. and that way you'll be able to see the mixing a little bit better. So I'm using these 3 colors, yellow, red, and blue. Those are the 3 colors I'd like for you to use as well, because those are our 3 primary colors. Those are the colors that I'm most interested in seeing how they mix together. So we're going to start with these 3. And we're going to just start coloring in. Now, markers are, even though they are in marker form, they are actually a paint. So they will bleed. If you put too much on the paper, it will cause the paper to rip because the paper will get too wet. So make sure when you are coloring with them that you're going side by side. You don't want to go over top of an area, because when I come back and color in this jar, I'm going to be coloring yellow on that blue. So actually I should have done the yellow first. So I'm actually not going to do yellow on that blue because it'll mess up the tip of my marker. So you want to start with your light colors first. Yellow is my lightest color. The reason I want to start with yellow first is because if I try to color on top of the blue with the yellow, all of that blue ink from this marker is going to get on the tip of the yellow marker and make it really dirty, and then I'll have to clean it. So as you can see, I am coloring up to the crayon line, or yeah, the crayon line. I'm not coloring over it on this fish just because I don't need to. Not only that, when it gets wet, it's going to bleed a little bit, so it'll go all the way up to that line. Now here with the eye and with this part of the fish gill, that's a whole nother story. Again, I'm going side by side, and I am using the broad side of the tip because that's going to help me cover more area. I'm going to hold off on coloring this part of the fish in because I'm going to color red here. Actually, I might do yellow here. Yeah, I'll do yellow there. I'll do yellow there, and that way I can color right over top of it, the yellow with the blue, and we can get an idea of what it's going to do as far as when we mix, because I think you may be able to see a little bit of the mixing just from this coloring here. All right, so I'll make this yellow real quick so then I can color over it with blue. Go ahead and do the rest of this jar yellow. Again, if I color over top of that black crayon with this yellow marker, some of that black crayon, the marker will pick it up because the marker is wet. It's a wet surface. It's going to pick up any little pieces of black crayon and probably spread them around to other parts of my picture that I don't necessarily want them in. It'll make it look dirty. So that's why another reason why I'm not necessarily coloring over those lines if I don't have to. The fun thing with crayons, with using crayons, is crayons are made out of wax. So they kind of tend to, if you draw your lines hard enough and dark enough, they kind of act as barriers and hold the paints in the areas that you put them in, watercolors or markers that we're going to turn into paint in this case. So I'm going to go ahead and color over top of this one spot right here of the fish with the blue, and you can see just that little bit that I've done, it looks a little bit green. So when I wet it with the marker, it's going to be really cool because you're going to actually see how those colors mix a little bit more clearly. It's a lot of fun. So this one I have to kind of color over the black crayon with the red. Another reason why I decided to go with red over here, because it's a little bit darker tip. So you can see on that tip, whoops, maybe not. It's not going to clear up enough, but you can see that tip right here, it's darker because it's picked up some of that wax from the crayon. And I don't necessarily want to color over top of the blue with this because I'm already getting the tip dirty. So I'm going to hold off on that. I am, however, going to come over here, put red over here, red on top of yellow, We'll see what that red turns into. I'm gonna do another yellow here just for fun. So this sketch pad that I have, it's got some pretty thick paper in it. I did that on purpose so that when I do projects like this, it can handle the water. The paper won't rip as easy. But like you can see there, there's a little bit of dirt on that marker tip. I'm gonna go ahead down here, color this in yellow. And I'm gonna get my yellows already colored in down here that I need to have colored in. Let's see. This guy in yellow here. He's a funny little thing. All right, and I'll stop there with my yellows for now. Finish coloring in my red base up here. I'll do red here. So really what I should have done and what I will tell you guys to do with this, color in all of the shapes that you want to have yellow first. Then go back to red because that's your next darkest color and use red next. Then go back to blue and use blue next, which is kind of what I just did. I just finished coloring in all of the pieces that I wanted yellow. Now I'm going back and I'm coloring all of the pieces after I'm done with coloring all the pieces that I want red. And then I'm gonna go back and color in all of the pieces that I want blue, which you can tell there's 2 pieces left that will end up being blue. My shelves, I'm not coloring in at all. They are white shelves hanging on a white wall. This is one of the few times I will tell you, don't worry about the background. We actually want that background to be white, and I want those shelves to be white. Usually I say don't forget your background space, but for this project, your background space should be plain. All right, so I'm coloring this in. Now be careful too when you are coloring. Now that I have all that colored in, if you press down and you rest your hand on that ink, your hand will pick it up because your hand will start sweating, especially the longer that it's sitting in one spot, and it could smear it. So I'm actually trying to just rest my hand right on the edge of the paper and color without resting my whole flat side of my hand on this paper. It's hard to do. So I'm also coloring a little bit more carefully because of that. All right. So I have this all colored in. I'll get this one colored in. I am using the tip for this one spot that's smaller. Right here. Now you can tell on here where I've gone over some of my marker lines that I've colored in multiple times, because you can see that it's a darker blue. Try not to, simply because we're gonna get this paper really wet when we start painting over it with a paintbrush. If you don't have a paintbrush, a Q-tip works really well. You can use a cotton ball if you need to use that. If you have a clothespin that you can hold the cotton ball with, that would be the best thing, although you're gonna have to use more than one cotton ball because that cotton ball is gonna get wet fast. And it's going to create, there will be a lot of little pieces of cotton that get left behind, little hairs. Another thing that you can do is use fabric softener. It'll smell really good too, but fabric softener is a little bit sturdier material, so you can get a used one that's already been in the dryer, and ball it up and hold it with that clothespin and paint with that, just in case you don't have a paintbrush. So I have two paintbrushes here. I'm probably just going to use this round tipped one just because that tends to work the best. Both of these are pretty stiff. I prefer ones that aren't as stiff when I do watercolors, but these will work for what we're doing today. So I have my water. Again, kind of like I did halfway through, I'm going to start painting my light colors first, so my yellows first. And then I'm going to move to my red and then my blue. So here, where they're both mixed, this I'm going to wait. I'm going to start up here at the top, and I'm going to work my way down. So go ahead and get my brush wet. My brush is wet, but I'm also going to dab it off because I don't want it to drip all over my paper. I want to control where the water goes. So I'm going to start over here. And I'm starting over here because it's on the edge of my paper, but also because, well, see now, because I went through that red, when I came back, it pulled some of that red into that yellow. It's okay, not a big deal. If you don't like it, put your brush in the water, rinse it out, press the excess water off by pushing your brush against the side of the jar or cup that you're using. Come back, paint a little bit more. And so what we're doing is we're smoothing out all those marker lines. And if you look at it from the side, you can kind of see that it's wet. The paper is kind of wrinkling up a little bit. All right, I'm gonna go back in here, rinse that brush off, press it against the side to get the excess water out. I'm gonna go over here to this yellow one. I'm gonna paint the center area first, get it nice and smoothed out. And then I'm going to go over here into the red. And you can see where the red has started to mix in with yellow a little bit. Now, before I come over here and paint over top of where the blue and the yellow mix together, again, I'm rinsing my brush off. Press the excess water out of it. And that is why I did that, because that blue, it's darker, it's a much stronger color. Might as well have fun with it, right? Pretty cool, huh? All right, so then we're gonna go over here to the red. So I probably, even though I like to start with the lighter colors, typically when I make art, I go from left to right because I'm right-handed. So if you are left-handed and you have your lighter colors over here, the direction I'm going would work perfect for you because you're gonna be working this way as opposed to me, I'm working the opposite way. So we got that red mixed in there. And mixing that red and that blue together creates violet. You can see it a little bit there. I actually did not paint or color the red over top of the blue. So that's just from, that's the violet, that violet that we get is just from me not cleaning out my brush from the red when I went into working in the blue. I'm gonna go ahead and paint this fun little fish in the rest of the way. So my blue glasses aren't gonna look very clear and blue because blue is a dark color. So they're looking pretty dark right now. And that's okay. It's still pretty fun. Look at what it's done so far. Isn't that fun? It'll look really awesome when it's dry. All right, I'm gonna move my canvas up a little bit. I just call it a canvas because I'm painting, even though it is technically a piece of paper. And again, I'm gonna start with my light colors. So I'm gonna start with this yellow one right here. It's really thin. I don't actually, on this paper, even though that's really thin, I don't want all three of them to mix together, which is why I did a swipe to the left and then a swipe to the right and clean my brush off in between. If I mix yellow, red, and blue together, I will end up with brown, and I don't want brown. I want to be able to see the colors that those three mix or make when mixed together, but I don't actually want a brown, which if you mix all three together, you're going to get brown. If you leave them separate, which here it's mixing a little bit, so we might end up getting a little bit of brown, so you can see that, which actually might be a good thing. You mix two primary colors together to get a secondary color. So yellow and blue make green, yellow and red make orange, blue and red make violet. If you mix all three together, you get brown. Brown is a neutral. You don't necessarily want to get a neutral, but if you do, I mean, there are times that you want neutral colors, but here on this project, we don't want a neutral. Here you can see a little bit of that purple there. All right, so I'm gonna get my blues in now. They're gonna be great. So this is basically our study for our color mixing, our primary colors creating our secondary colors, and actually seeing how they mix and mingle together. It's also a way for me to show you something you can do with markers. If you don't have paints but you want to paint, you can actually use markers a little bit like paint. And we'll play with this a little bit more later on, doing different things with them. But for now, that's just kind of an introduction into color mixing. I will take a picture of it once it's dried. You should be able to see the colors and how they look a little bit better then. Give me just a second. I'm gonna change the angle so you can see it from the top view. Right there. Looks pretty good, doesn't it, guys? Y'all did a good job. All right, once it dries, I'll take a picture of it, and I'll see you guys later.